What's up, guys? Eric here, Mr. Fired Up Wealth. Today, I'm going to bring you video number 5 in the global e-commerce series. So if you're not familiar, I did a video, the top 10 international e-commerce growth stocks, and I had the community, the Fired Up Wealth community, I had them vote on what stocks to do deep dives in. So we started with Mercado Libre, then we did C Limited. We did a bonus one last week for the Go-To IPO, that's Gojek and Tokopedia merger. Today, we're going to cover GLBE. That's GLBE is the ticker. This is actually a really interesting company. It was a recent IPO early May. It's run up from $25 to $60. The question you have is it a buy at these levels? What do I think? What am I going to do with the stock? Am I going to buy it in my portfolio? Stay tuned to find out. Okay, guys, GLBE Online, ticker is GLBE. Now, if you've been following me for any time, you know that I like to take notes. And so I've got notes here from their first investor presentation. It's with the CEO. It's about 45 minutes. I've got some notes from a couple other places as well. And I have my notebook and I want to give you the highlights. Now, this interview is with Amir Schlaket. It's spelled a little bit different, but he pronounced it himself, Schlaket. So it's Amir Schlaket. He's the CEO, and I've got some really good background on this company from this interview. I'm going to share the highlights. Later in the video, I'm also going to share some risks for the company, and I'm also going to tell you what I'm going to do with the stock in my portfolio. Am I going to buy it or not? So definitely watch the video in its entire duration. Please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and drop me a comment. So let's get going. So some background on GLBE. So 8+ years ago, the company was created. Now, it's a really cool background to this. So the team knew each other from working at a bank. So this leadership team's been together for many years, and they had a fintech assignment that really sparked interest. And what happened was a team member, they went out for lunch, and a team member shared a story where he ordered a pair of shoes from abroad, from a different country, and it got delivered, got shipped to him, and he was slapped with massive fees, duties, and taxes that he just wasn't expecting. So through the process of working together on this fintech assignment, they ran into this a couple different times. This is one example the CEO provided, but he basically mentioned that this had happened to a couple of their team members, and they started to realize collectively that there was this global problem that didn't really have a very good solution. And so they really stumbled upon this just through chance. And essentially, with time, they designed a platform for shoppers and merchants alike. So for shoppers, it's really important for localization, and it's difficult for merchants to do this, especially if they're not large merchants and they don't have the resources to do it. But on the shopper side, for the consumer, localization, so relevant languages, relevant currencies, the shipping options with those duties and taxes included in the payment, so they know exactly what to expect. And then relevant local payment options. So you might have PayPal in the United States and say, in Latin America, maybe it's Mercado Libre, but everything is localized to the user experience. Now for the merchant, GLBE does all the heavy lifting. So essentially makes it really easy, plug and play so that the existing websites can work, but can basically change through plugins and offer localization for different countries to be able to ship across borders. So you essentially, if you're a merchant, you can use GLBE Online and you can sell your products to different countries. And all this solution basically makes it really easy. All the heavy lifting is done by GLBE for these merchants. Some of the stats that Amir shared: 4.5 million transactions, 300 million shoppers, and 185 countries and 440 merchants. So with that, they have unparalleled data. This is one of their differentiators, because later we're going to talk about competition, and there's actually quite a bit of competition. So surprisingly, there's more competition than I think most would realize, and it's something that I haven't seen talked about when I look at different articles and things like that out there about this company. It's something that isn't really mentioned as much as maybe it should be. There's quite a bit of competition. I'm also going to talk later about the Shopify relationship. That relationship is really good, but you might be surprised to hear some of the information that I have for you. So stay tuned for that. So a quick screen share here, guys. This is their website, and you can see smart cross-border. Grow your international sales quickly and simply in more than 200 destinations with GLBE's end-to-end cross-border solution. So it's important to note that they really drive that home, that they're end to end, right? They do everything from soup to nuts and all the heavy lifting for those merchants. And there's some good stats on here. There's some good information. You can come on here and check it out too. Smart converts well. Smart is simple. It talks about smart solutions, couple advanced e-commerce technology with deep market insights. Smart is simple. The best part of being smart, being able to keep it simple. GLBE eliminates the complications involved in cross-border selling. Our solution covers everything you need for streamlined international expansion, making cross-border sales as simple as domestic ones. They want to make this simple plug and play for the merchants. And there, you can see there's different solutions. So you go up here to Smart Solutions. There's the E-Enterprise, there's E-Pro, and then there's this Facebook partnership here. Partners integrations, I want to cover this really quick. So you've got Shopify, of course, PayPal, you've got DHL, you got Salesforce, BigCommerce, IBM. There's a lot of big names on here. I think that's important to note. And there are some success stories on here. This is from Mark Jacobs. GLBE's ongoing support, market insights, and experience enable us to maximize our international sales and conversion rates and align our international offering with our business strategy in each and every market. I think that's a very powerful testimonial there. And I just wanted to cover this really quick to give you just a quick snapshot of the business and the website. So with all the analytics they're able to capture from all these transactions, they're able to slice and dice data. And what that does is it allows data-driven insights. You're seeing this more and more, digital adoption, digital transformation, data-driven analytics. It's a great theme and it's very important and it is impactful. It definitely can make a business more profitable, more effective. And so they got these smart insights is what they call it. The CEO called it smart insights. It's data-driven insights. And it helps merchants get better results, essentially, at the end of the day. So GLBE isn't just commodity, so to speak. They really look at themselves as a trusted advisor. And that's where they can differentiate themselves because they are the biggest one out there and have the most data. So I think this is really important to the puzzle for their success. They have deep relationships because of this, and it creates loyalty. And I think longer term, it means upselling opportunities, cross-selling and things like that. So if global e-commerce can create more products, it might, with these deep relationships as a trusted advisor, they could essentially sell more, expand their platform, expand their footprint, which is pretty common. When you think of, I used to work in software and sold software and software services, and that's what you're always trying to do. You're trying to, get in with big clients and then expand your footprint. So you might start small and get bigger, and that's going to allow them to do that. In fact, the CEO talked about churn rate, and I think it's probably later in my notes, but it's a good point in the video to talk about it now. But I believe it's 2% churn rate, which is a pretty good number. For the last 3 years, it's 2%. So pretty loyal customers. They generally, once they get in on the platform, it's sticky and they're not leaving. So the CEO went on, and this interview went on for a while, but the first 10 or 15 minutes was just the background of the company, which was good because it's giving you information of why you might want to invest in the business. So it's easy to sell GLBE to merchants, he said, because merchants know they have a problem to solve. Most merchants that want to sell internationally, they either don't do it because they simply just feel overwhelmed by it, or they're trying to do it and realize they need help because they just don't have the expertise and the know-how to get it done. And so they see the opportunity in selling cross-border, but don't know how. Like I said, don't know how, don't have the knowledge or the capabilities. GLBE solves this problem for them. And essentially, he said, GLBE is a simple plugin that can connect to any site, so any website. So you can essentially use this anywhere and take data and aggregate it. It's a plugin that basically overlaps over a website, which makes it really simple to implement, which is nice. One thing I will say about that, though, is that when I hear that, it's a simple plugin. It's a very simple thing to implement. Well, is it also simple for another company to create a competitive product and displace them? That, to me, is a risk, and we talk more about that later in the video. We'll talk about some risks, but it's a good point in the video to mention that. And if you're interested in more of the risks that I uncovered, definitely stay tuned for the rest of the video. What I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to show you some of the competitors, and you might be surprised of how many actually work in this space. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. When I started doing research on this, I was surprised when I started looking at competitors that there were as many as that there actually are. And you can argue that GLBE, and you'll see in here that GLBE has the most websites, seems to be kind of the best of breed. But I was surprised because a lot of the commentary that I've read from, different articles online, things like that, has been kind of like that they've got this massive moat and that, it's impenetrable. And, listening to the CEO talk, my first impression was he's a really smart guy. And I was like, wow, this guy's really solid. The more I listened to the interview, I'm not necessarily discrediting him or anything or saying that he's not a smart guy or anything, but the more that he talked, the more I was like, well, wait a minute. That's too simple. And then talk about competition. You're like, well, wait a minute. You start looking at, I found this website, Similar Tech, that compares. And you're like, wait a minute, there's quite a bit of competition. Then he started talking about Shopify. And I didn't know all the details in the Shopify relationship. A lot of people hype that up like this, this huge money-making machine, which it could be, but wait till later. I'll talk about the Shopify relationship. I think you'd be really surprised with what the Shopify partnership really is. So I will say that I won't ruin it. I won't spoil it and tell you everything right now, but I do like the company. It is an exciting company, but I do have some reservations, and I will get to those here in a few minutes. So Borderfree has 375 websites, right? GLBE has 935 websites, and you can go and look, top 10K sites, 100K sites. So the categories, GLBE has better usage coverage in more websites, including lifestyle, sports, home and garden, business, consumer services, and 12 other categories. Borderfree is leading e-commerce for shopping, food and drink, jobs and career and travel and tourism. So it seems like there's maybe a little bit of a niche for Borderfree, and it kind of shows you the geography here. You can see, it's kind of hard to see probably, but that black is Borderfree, and then GLBE is the dark blue color. So geographically a little different, but you can see down here, and I won't go through all these and bore you to death, and you can take a look at this website, Similar Tech. But look, you look at this, right? GLBE versus Flow. That's another one, versus Flavor Cloud, GLBE versus Zonos, International Checkout, GLBE versus eShop World, GLBE versus UPS, GLBE versus FedEx, ShopEx. And when you dig into these, I dug in a little bit, GLBE does do more than some of these. You think of UPS and FedEx. GLBE is more that trusted advisor, can do more and bring more data. But it is important to note that if you're a merchant and you want to do cross-border selling, there's quite a few options out there. I think from my research, I can tell you that GLBE is really the market leader and has the most websites and clientele. I mentioned earlier 440 different merchants and some of the stats that I mentioned earlier that are very impressive. But I was surprised to see just how many of these little niche vendors there really are. You think of Flow and you think of Borderfree and all these different companies. So something just to note if you're an investor or a potential investor, there definitely is competition out there. And I'll also say that it doesn't seem impossible to disrupt this technology either. Okay, let's talk about the GLBE partnership with Shopify. I'm long Shopify. I like that stock a lot. It's expensive, but I like it a lot. I got into it quite a bit lower, so I'm fortunate. If you're following the channel, I did a top 5 stocks to buy, I think for May or June, and Shopify was on there. I think it was $1,000 and it's run up to $1,500. So it literally ran up 50% in about a month's time. And I'm getting all these messages because I actually changed my LinkedIn profile to my new job with the Motley Fool as a contractor, and I'm getting lit up nonstop. It's kind of funny. So let's talk about Shopify. So Shopify, they wanted simpler integration, and you think of Shopify, there's a lot of smaller merchants. So Shopify does a lot of small and medium-sized businesses. And so they try to provide as many services as possible to their merchants. So they do cross-border selling. So Shopify does their own cross-border selling, but they did an RFP. So if you're not familiar with an RFP, it's basically a request. You can sometimes you'll see it as RFQ, request for quote. An RFP was sent out basically so anybody can respond to the RFP, and there's a formal bidding process to award a contract. So GLBE was selected with the RFP. Now that's something that I hadn't heard anywhere else. This was from the CEO a week ago in this interview. And I was kind of surprised by that because I used to, of course, with software, I did software and software services, cloud, and everything was RFPs, always respond to RFPs. It's one of the things that I really did not like about the job is constantly having to respond to these 100-page RFPs. So I think a lot of people would just assume that Shopify just, came to them and said, we like you so much because you're best of breed, let's work together. No, it was an RFP. And, don't get me wrong, they won the RFP, they were selected. So it's indirectly maybe saying that, but I think there's a difference there to me, at least. It feels different. What was interesting about this RFP is that it coincided with the IPO process. So the IPO process was going on at the same time as the RFP. And I haven't really mentioned this, but if you're not familiar with this stock, this company, GLBE Online, it was a recent IPO and it's ran really hard since it basically opened to the public. And so we'll talk more about the valuation here in a second. So GLBE this is the good news, is now exclusive cross-border partner for Shopify. But this is something that I had never seen before. No one else had covered it I'm sure someone has, but I personally hadn't seen it from articles I've read and things. It's a 3-year contract. So they won a 3-year award, okay? And it does renew automatically annually after 3 years, but it's a lot different than, an exclusive partnership with no line in the sand. This has a 3-year contract and it will auto renew, which is good, but there is some risk there. There's no guarantee that's going to last forever. As someone that did RFPs for a living, I had a deal with a large university system on the West Coast, and that was a 3-year contract, and they renewed it 2 years, and then they canceled it. So we got 5 years, which is great. And as an investor, maybe your time horizon's 2 or 3 years. That's great. But if you're thinking you're going to hold this for a decade, it could be a risk. I'm trying to bring the information to you. So I'm not trying to make a bear case, nothing like that. I like to bring you unbiased, neutral information so you can make a decision on your own. I'm not a financial advisor, basically a stock analyst. I analyze these stocks. I provide information and make it easier for you to get this information quickly and get the most important data concisely as I can get it to you to help you with your decision if you want to buy a stock or invest in the company. But I can't make the decision for you, and I can't tell you what to buy or sell. Now, here's what's really interesting about this, okay? So listen to this. This is from the CEO. Only the top 1% of merchants on Shopify will actually need cross-border selling. So literally at this point in time, only 1% of Shopify's customers actually will need cross-border selling. Now, can that number grow? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not trying to take away from the opportunity there, but it's important to understand what the opportunity really is, because I think it's being misconstrued and kind of pumped the wrong way on some of these boards and things that I've read. So right now, GLBE is working on a next generation platform with Shopify for even simpler integration, which I think is great. And I think longer term, this could be a good partnership, especially if they can keep that contract renewed. But 1% is important to know as an investor because, like I said, it's been hyped to be a lot more than that. Like they've got this exclusive Shopify partnership and it's going to bring all this money. And I think a lot of people just assume that all merchants on Shopify will use cross-border. According to the CEO, 1% of Shopify customers actually need cross-border selling at this given moment. So what is the exact total addressable market? Of course, that's hard to determine, but you can definitely agree that 1% of Shopify's business is not nearly as good as if you make the assumption that it's 100% of their business or of their clientele. So this is an older article from May 7th, and it's a Motley Fool article, and it's talking about this partnership a little bit further. So Shopify takes $193 million pre-IPO stake in partner GLBE, and this is really what's mostly being pumped online in articles and things like that, and I think it's great. But I wanted to show you this information too. So we just talked about what that RFP looks like, how much business we think that GLBE might get working with Shopify. And obviously this helps because it shows confidence in the business. So Shopify investing in GLBE. And some people have speculated that maybe Shopify will even just buy out GLBE. Now, I don't think that they'll do it at this point because stock has run up so much. Now the valuation of the company, the market cap is $8.6 billion. I think if they were going to do it, they would have done it at a lower valuation before the IPO. So it's still possible, but those are just my thoughts and opinions on that. So Shopify did buy, it says, 7.75 million shares, acquiring 6.5%. So they own a 6.5% stake. And then Shopify also acquired warrants that entitle an additional 11.85 million shares over the next coming 2 years, which could bring the value of Shopify's stake to nearly $500 million if the current pricing holds. For the year ended December 31st, 2020, GLBE produced revenue of $136.3 million, up 107% year over year. And they have had earnings since that, which were actually higher. Very good earnings the last quarter. So solid growth. There's no question that GLBE has had solid growth. It's a question more about the valuation. Now, we talked earlier about the 6.5%. I do want to note here, after the IPO, the stake will slip to 5.4%, but then there's also the warrants that can buy the 11.85 million shares. So essentially, depending on how the market, everything works out here, Shopify could own 5 or 10% of global e-commerce's business. It's just important to bring to your attention. Okay, so I haven't mentioned it yet, but this is headquartered in Israel. So it is an Israeli firm. Now, the market cap right now, you guys, is about $8.64 billion. So it has run up quite a bit since its IPO. And let's look at a chart really quick. Now, we don't have a ton of data, of course. The IPO was early May, and now we're, basically the end of June. So we don't have a ton of data, but you can see it ran from basically $25 a share up past $60 a share. It's trading at about $60 a share even right now. One thing I'll note before I forget too, one of the risks is competition. We kind of talked about that. The margins have been improving. They were in the 20% range, and now this last quarter, they're around 33%. So they are improving, but it's not a crazy high margin business. So it is something to note. And, Shopify relationship, I think, is very big for these guys, especially if they can keep that partnership and maybe expand it with this new platform. So I am very excited and bullish. I actually like this stock. I started talking about the stock around $30 in Discord. Of course, I didn't pull the trigger because I didn't do my due diligence, and I never buy a stock until I do all the research and just have a lot going on. And so sometimes, you miss out. This one, ran from me. I personally, for me, I'm not sure if I want to buy it at $60 a share. You could easily, say that it's worth that much. If you look at the price of sales, the EV sales multiple, it's about the same for Shopify stock as GLBE. It's about a 40. So I think GLBE is slightly under 38 or 39, and Shopify is around a 40. Of course, Shopify just ran up a lot too. It just went up 50% in, basically a month's time. And I think a lot of people would probably make the argument that they want to invest in GLBE over Shopify because GLBE is a $8.6 billion market cap, and Shopify, which is trading just under $1,500 a share right now, the market cap on that is $185 billion. The PE ratio on Shopify is about 117. So it is an expensive stock as well. And I mentioned the 40x on the EV sales multiple. One could argue that you buy Shopify at this value, even though it is a $185 billion company, that winners keep winning and that Shopify will, be worth a lot more in 5 years. You could also make the argument that maybe GLBE could grow into a much bigger business. Even if it went to $25 billion valuation, that's a three bagger from here. So, I think a lot of people invest that way. You have to be careful of doing that, but it can help justify if you use it as I always say, a tool in the tool belt, but you never use one tool by itself. You use a bunch of tools to get the job done. So it's tricky on this one to really say, what would I buy it at? Well, $30 is where I started looking at. That's, where I should have bought it. No shoulda, coulda, woulda. That's one of my investing rules. And it's run for me. So for me personally, what I'm going to do with this stock is I'm going to put it on my watch list. And when the stock starts to go down, I've got a phone call I need to block. I'm getting lit up today. But I'm going to put it on a watch list. And if it comes down, I'll probably buy it. At this point, there's not really a lot of technical data to say, hey guys, when this comes down to $52, that's when you buy. You can see the moving averages on your screen, and obviously you don't have a lot of data. It's only a month of data. So, those aren't even that relevant because one of them is a 200-day moving average. But when I look at this stock, I mean, I want to do some more homework on it. I'd like to have a pullback. So on a pullback, I think this is an opportunity to add to a long-term investing portfolio. I always use dollar cost averaging. So, maybe I'd buy something if it came down closer to, $50 to $55. There's no guarantee you'll even do that. It could keep running. And sometimes these stocks run and you miss them. And don't get me wrong, everybody has their own strategy, their own beliefs. You can make the argument, well, it's $60 now and it might come down, but the company's gonna be worth a lot more in 5 years, so I'm willing to pay $60 a share. And you could definitely do that. For me personally, I think it would have to come down before I would buy some, and I would dollar cost average into it. I wouldn't just put all my money into one position on it. But anyway, that's my analysis on this one, guys. I've had a lot of people say, hey, these videos are great, keep it up. Do them long, do them short. I'm trying to give a variety. New videos every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Please subscribe to the channel. If you want to help me for my time, these are free videos for you to watch. Hit the like button. It helps me more than you can even realize. It helps the algorithm. If you hit the like button, you watch the video in its entirety, and you drop me a comment, that's going to help the video get more views. It's going to help me out a lot. So I appreciate it. I'm going to keep making these videos as long as people are watching them and as long as they're helping people. I appreciate your time and attention. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.